Okay, good evening. My name is Eleanor Mullaney. I'm an attorney at 480 Broadway, Saratoga Springs, and I'm here representing the Saratoga Springs School District with regard to the issue of a pilot payment that has not been made for the 2022-23 tax year. As you likely know, the city entered into an IDA agreement giving Quad Graphics a 10-year pilot agreement. That agreement was to take effect with the first tax bill of the 22-23 year, which is the school tax bill. On or about October 24 of 2022, the IDA notified the district that Quad had not, in fact, been removed by the tax roll, which, pursuant to statute, is the assessor's obligation. And as a consequence, Quad had received and paid its 22-23 school tax bill, the first half of it. The district, of course, had prepared its 22-23 budget based on the removal of Quad from the tax base and with the inclusion of a pilot payment. The amount of that pilot payment was to be $217,400. With this mistake, the district never received the $217,400. We have had discussions since this time, and the city's resolution with the IDA was to extend the pilot so that Quad would pay the full school and city tax in the 22-23 year, and the pilot would commence in the 23-24 tax year. That solution has not made the district whole. This district is still out $217,000 and change. Our hope in discussing this with you this evening is that the city will acknowledge the impact that this has on the district, and we can work towards a reasonable solution. With me this evening is the school superintendent, Mike Patton, the school board president, Tony Krakauer, and Bobby Yasko, our assistant superintendent for business. So Superintendent Patton will now speak.
Thank you, Eleanor.
I'd actually like to respond directly to her first.
Commissioner, why don't we let everybody speak, and then we can, right? Why don't we
She's misrepresenting the conversations that we had, so.
I mean, that happens a lot.
You're true.
Why don't we just hear their case, okay?
Sure.
As a superintendent of the school district, I just want to come to approach the city council and to make sure that everybody is aware of the pilot situation and the impact that it's had on the school district. $217,000 is a significant amount of revenue that was planned for and budgeted for the 22-23 school year. It has a direct impact on our staffing, our services, as well as the support that we can provide to our students. So this is a significant amount of money. And again, we want to work with the city and see if we can reach a compromise. And really all we're asking for is to be able to have the opportunity to have discussion and again, make this situation right so we have the resources available to provide to our students within the school district. Thank you.
So, Commissioner, I know you want to respond. Why don't we do this? Is there anyone else from the school district that wants to address the board about this issue? All right. So, go ahead, Commissioner.
Sure. So when this issue was brought to our attention, we responded immediately to the issue with the remedies that are both contemplated and provided for in law. We did everything legally and lawfully. There are things that you need to understand. You're making this representation that the school district needs to be made whole. And for you, that means the city taxpayers are responsible for $217,000 for a clerical error. The law contemplates that and tells you that that is not, it's not how it works. The party who was concerned, who had standing, was Quad. We spoke with them. They were amenable to that situation. Your lawyer was present for those conversations. And we put forth the remedy of correcting the error with an RP 553, which is how it's done. Further, the $149 million budget that you have, this amount of money represents 0.14%. I'm sure some good that you buy over the course of a year has varied more than 0.14%. Further, that $149 million budget, or whatever portion is levied on the taxpayer, is levied on the entire school district's taxpayers, not the city of Saratoga Springs taxpayers to bear the full burden. That is in fact the law. We provided you substantiated cases where this has happened before and how this is remedied. We put forward a very reasonable resolution, which we're not required to do by law, which was to resend those tax bills out a year ago. And that was not met with any sort of responsive offer in kind. You do, if you have damages, a requirement to remedy those or mitigate those damages, and you haven't taken any steps to do so. You filed a lawsuit against us that doesn't have merit. You've been heard. Everybody at this table knows everything about this case because we work together. And I find it insulting that instead of coming to me through your attorney like it's done, you went and talked to him and misrepresented the situation. So you have the information. We're happy to see you in court.
Anyone else want to speak? Or Commissioner Golub? So I guess my question really is sort of, and we will go into an executive session to discuss this. We can't back into your $217,000 number in terms of damage. So there may be some damages that the school district has incurred in terms of reissuing bills and doing all the rest of the stuff that the city rightfully would probably pick up because it is our mistake.
And that was our offer, sir.
But I just don't see where, but if there is like some kind of, sort of calculation of how you get to your 217 in terms of actual losses, I think the city council will look at that. It sounds like the taxes have been replaced. So if there's loss of interest, that kind of thing, or expenses, sure, would look at that. But it sounds like this is the payment in lieu of taxes has been, basically well, if it hasn't been reimbursed, it can be because Quad Graphics is willing to pay it. It has been. So,
If I could clarify,
Sure.
Quad either pays the school bill or they pay the pilot. They don't pay both. The school bill, if they're not included in the tax roll, the amount of money owed by Quad on the school bill is apportioned amongst all the other taxpayers, and the $217,000 is collected in the pilot category. That didn't happen. We did get the school bill for sure, but we had also budgeted the $217,000 in the pilot category, which we did not receive for the tax year. So there are two separate buckets, if you will, and if they either pay one or the other.
So they received one bucket, but they did not receive the other bucket.
And the correction is to reissue the tax bill with proper levy.
And I understand where you're coming from and the finance piece of it. We have had internal discussions, and I think we should continue to have some of those internal discussions so we can communicate with you and try to find something that works for everyone.
but
Yeah, I mean,
I'm
we
still
have-
wrestling with, okay, so let's fill the bucket. But what's that number?
That number is this.
I made an offer
You think it's
in our first
That's-
meeting
that's-
well,
to
but-
help to pay to resend the bills, and it was rejected. And we're still sitting here.
If I could just address the issue of the resending of the bills. There are 20,000 tax bills that go out. They don't just go out to people in the city, they go out to everyone in the district, which
All
is the
the
city, and
taxpayers who are owed the
including all
money.
the surrounding towns that participate in the city school district. Sending an updated bill to that number of constituents on a problem that existed by virtue of an error in the city tax, not the town of Greenfield tax, not the town of Wilton tax, not any other tax, would have created in our perspective, a tremendous impact. It would be an issue of lack of confidence. Patrons would be calling and saying, why has this happened? We have over 20% of our bills paid through escrows. We would have been answering to banks. We would have been answering to mortgage companies. It did not seem tenable to adjust every single tax bill. And that offer was not made until January.
That's not true.
When, in fact, the second tax bill was to go out. There was no time to do it in those there were 3 weeks, essentially, between when we had the meeting and that offer was made and when that bill would have gone out. It would have been virtually impossible to do it. So now we've got both half of the school bills paid, and now we're going back to 20,000 taxpayers and saying, sorry, you paid the wrong amount. You got to pay a little more here and a little more there. So
And they
that's
have
the
to
scope,
by law.
and that's the scope of the problem. And so that did not seem realistic or feasible from the district's perspective, and that's why we've not done that.
We also understand, but it was a human error that happened.
Yes.
It wasn't malicious at our end.
Of course not. And we understand that. Of course not. No one's suggesting
Literally
in any
an
way
error
that it
of
is.
omission carried in the law under that name, and the remedy provided for it happened previously. What you're asking for, you're not entitled to.
Well, that's illegal. That would maybe
Let's go to
something
court.
we'll resolve in court down the road.
I provided you
We're
three
trying
precedents.
to resolve this in another way, but
I agree. Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
Thank you for your time.
I appreciate y'all coming and talking.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. So we'll continue our